What's up guys? If you guys watch my tutorials a lot on YouTube, you know that I usually talk about a specific thing like a set of moves or phase tricks or this or that. Well, in this video, I'm going to break down everything that's important to learn in the game and how you can learn it. This is going to be a full guide to improvement, so if you're washed, you have found your key to get unwashed. Before we hop into the video, please consider using code JIVENTV if you've been liking the content recently, or if you've been hating it, just use somebody else's code. It really does help us out a ton. Without further ado, let's get into this video. So we all know Fortnite is a very mechanical game. Basically, this means that mechanics, which is aim, editing, building, is all so important to your success. So let's start there. How do you improve your mechanics? And the answer is creative mode. Creative is the key to getting mechanically better and building confidence in your fighting, editing, building, whatever it is. So I'm gonna list all of the maps and how you should be practicing in them to see the most success. Let's start with the first one, aim, the most important mechanic in any shooter video game. One of the ways I practice my aim is by going into Raiders 1v1 Aim Trainer. By the way, all these map codes are going to be linked in the description. And the maps that require other players to practice with, all you got to do is type in the code and matchmake into a game with other players. Everyone in those games is looking to improve, so it's great practice. Anyways, Raiders 1v1 Aim Trainer. There are so many useful drills in this map. I'm going to list off some of my favorites. The 1x1 reaction courses are some of the best for getting your shotgun aim down. And you can also practice your movement in this. I always make sure to run that course whenever I go into Raiders 1v1 Aim Trainer. And the classic aim duel maps are really good for practicing weapon swapping between shotgun and AR, and just general tracking of the opponent. This is the most similar thing to a 50-50 in game. Somebody gets in your box, this is that scenario. So it's really good to practice this. Getting the timing of how long it takes for you to be able to shoot your pump again, getting the weapon swapping down, everything. Great place to practice that. This map also has out of sky tracking, which is so crucial for getting storm surge tags. If you don't know what storm surge is, we'll talk about that later. This map also has a box fight section and SMG tracking section. So many good things in this map. I recommend practicing your aim every single day, whether it's in this map or the next one we're going to talk about, Panville's 200 pump map. In this map, you can only kill people if you hit a perfect 200 pump, so this really trains your reaction to aim for the head. If you run this map enough, you'll notice yourself starting to hit heavier pumps. Not only that, you can also practice your edit coursing, your piece control, your peak shots, everything within this map. That's why I run it every single day. One thing to practice in this map that I forgot to mention is make sure you're practicing bob and weave. Crouching up and down, moving left and right while aiming at the enemy. This will help you get better at dodging the opponent's shots when you're in a 50-50 and just surviving longer in those situations. So now that we talked about those, let's talk about piece control. Piece control is simply owning as many builds in a fight as possible strategically. This will help you get angles on the enemy, help you get them trapped so that they can't escape from you. And yeah, let's talk about it for a little bit. You can go into any of Raiders' piece control practice maps. So far, he has 3 of them, and he also has a piece control edit course, which is really good practice. When you're trying to learn your piece control, this is the place to do it. Go in here every single day until you feel like you're at the level with piece control where you don't really mess it up and you can find the in-game situations to use it. When you're practicing, make sure you're practicing with the right techniques. Notice how I'm doing it in all these courses. I'm making sure to hug my peaks. For example, if I'm piece controlling someone through a window trying to box them up, I hug the left side of the window so that they don't have an angle on me and I can still piece control them through it. You're not always going to be able to claim every single build in a fight optimally. You only want to go for the builds that you can get while using a right-hand peek. So you'll notice in a lot of these situations, I leave the left wall open because you can't get that wall without exposing yourself through the window. Hypothetically, if I was in a real fight and I noticed them start to go out the side that I left open, that's when I would claim that wall. Once I see their body turn, starting to go out that direction, I would try to get that wall before they can escape, because at that point, they don't have their gun aimed at you. I know it's one thing to do this stuff in a practice map, you may think you have it perfect, and it's a whole nother thing to transfer it to the game. Trust me, with enough practice in this map, and enough practice in 1v1s, it'll just naturally transfer over. It may take a few months to get to the level you're happy with, but this is the absolute fastest way to do it. Just know piece control is the hardest skill to get down successfully and optimally. So keep up your grind with this, and eventually once you're able to do it consistently, that's when you're at a point where you can compete. It's one of the most crucial things and hardest things to learn in the game. So let's move on to the next thing though. You may be wondering how to practice your edits. There's a few ways you can increase your edit speed. One of the ways is by hopping into an edit course like this. I'll have beginner edit courses and advanced edit courses linked in the description. You can just alternate between them as you see fit. The other way to get better at editing speed is just practice your edit coursing in the 200 pump map, and just when you're free building, practice doing a lot of edit courses. And now that leads us into the last mechanical thing that I want to talk about: free building and high ground retakes. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to go over a bunch of high ground retakes in this video because there's just so many in the game. What I am going to do for you is link some high ground retake videos in the description. I have so many and there's going to be a lot more coming, but I just recommend if you get shot from different angles in a build fight, or you always lose high ground, or you choke your builds in a build fight, start learning more retakes, because that helps you build an understanding and the muscle memory to do well in build fights. You may not use all the retakes that you learn, but learning them is a really good way to improve your mechanics. Alright, we're at that point in the video where we've covered all the mechanical things, and you're probably wondering, how do you transfer this stuff to an actual game? It's a whole different breed fighting an arena or a tournament. This is the part that comes down a lot to mentality. So I'm going to give you the best ways that worked for me for transferring those skills over to arena. It all starts with creative, again, believe it or not. There's certain maps in creative that really feel similar to arena. You'll find competitive players in these maps and similar weapon loadouts. So here's what I got for you. 1. This map, called 32 Player Zone Wars, codes in the description, is the best place to practice endgame scenarios. There's 32 players in a small zone, it's moving, it goes up mountains, and right now it's not updated for Season 8, but it will be very shortly, maybe by the time you watch this. I'm telling you, this is the closest thing to an actual Cash Cup endgame that I've ever found. It comes down to who's on high ground, who has more heals at the end of the game, and it's very high intensity. So that's the best place to practice for endgame. But what about mid-game fights? So mid-game fights really vary based on the player you're fighting. It could be a box fight, a build fight, there may be third parties. So mid-game fights is really about practicing in arena a lot, but there's also a way to get better at mid-game fighting faster through creative. What I really recommend doing is going to a Scrim Discord and going to the looking for players section and finding people to 1v1 there. You can also go to this website called rematch.gg, and you can run 1v1s on that website, and I'm pretty sure they're ranked, so the better you do, the better players you'll fight. So as you improve, you'll have better people you're fighting, and you'll just keep on improving. But all in all, it comes down to a lot of practice in arena. So once you feel you're at the mechanical level to do well, just grind arena. Even if you do terrible at first, eventually it'll come. One last twist: even if you get really good at fighting in arena, fighting in a Cash Cup is completely different. Most of the time, you really only want to take fights in your first game of a solo Cash Cup, because that's going to be the closest field to arena. If you do well in your first game, you're going to be going up against really good players, and fighting in the mid game just isn't going to be worth it because the fights last way too long. Both players are going to be cracked fighters, and so you oftentimes will just be completely shambles by the end of the fight. We'll talk a little bit more about tournaments and stuff at the end of the video. One more way I have for you to improve your mid-game fights is through box fights. Again, I recommend going to rematch.gg or Scrim servers to find people to box fight, realistic fight, build fight, and eventually with enough practice in that, you should start gaining enough fighting knowledge and fighting skill and confidence to do well in arena. Last thing regarding fighting, I post fighting tutorials all the time on my channel, and in these tutorials I have new fighting techniques to outplay opponents, whether it be new phase tricks, new boxing techniques, new ways to predict people, all sorts of stuff. So I really recommend staying up to date on those if you really are trying to get better. So let's say now that you have the skill to fight in creative in 1v1s, you have the mechanical skills, you have the confidence there, but you're still struggling to transfer that over to arena. Here's the advice I have for you that worked for me. In early game fights, be very patient. play angles and make sure you attack at the right times. Make sure you don't attack one person when you know there's another person nearby that's going to come and third party you. Just be patient, and if you're fighting in a building or an awkward angle, either disengage out of there or get in a box fight mentality. Early game fights a lot of times are very similar to 1v1 box fights, so getting in that mentality might help you out. Then mid-game fights, try to get in that realistic mentality. First, gauge the player. See, are they a build fighter? Are they a box fighter? What are we dealing with? If they start to build fight you, get in that realistic mentality right away and play like you would in a 1v1 realistic. On the counter, if they box up, get in that box fighting mentality. Sometimes picturing yourself in creative 1v1s can really bring confidence to your game. So the same thing applies for endgame. If you're in a stacked endgame and you notice yourself starting to panic a little bit, just think, it's literally a zone war. Picture yourself in 32-player zone wars, and I swear, it worked for me. You should gain some confidence. 2 more things to help you in Arena before we get into tournaments and scrims. One thing is, if you're new to Arena, start with a low-key drop spot. Maybe don't even go to a named location. Go to a little house on the outskirts of the map so you don't have to worry about off-spawn fighting. Or at least have that as a backup plan. If you're struggling off-spawn at named locations really badly, switch it up so you don't have to fight off-spawn and you can just focus on mid-game fights. Sometimes that can turn your mood around and give you the confidence you need to keep your day going. And then another thing to note is the center of the map is where everybody rotates in the middle of the game in Arena. So if you go there, everyone's going to be there and there's going to be a lot of third parties. So if you're trying to fight without a third party, avoid the middle of the map and try to find people maybe along the outer edges, like in a named location on the outer edge. Just corny complex, bony burbs, there's always going to be so many people there, just an FYI. On the counter, if you're looking for fights, go there every time. Also, those new spots with the wind tunnels are super populated, keep that in mind as well. If you go to a named location nearby that, you're oftentimes going to get third-partied by the people from the wind tunnels. Just a good thing to know. So now the last part of this video, I want to talk about scrims and tourneys. Building solo experience is super important, even if you're planning on playing trios primarily. Having that solo experience can help you find better teammates because you'll be a more reliable teammate, and it also just gives you a really good understanding of the game, how to rotate, when to look for storm surge tags, refreshes, high ground, a ton of stuff. So solos is a great place to practice. Anyways, the way I saw a lot of improvement in solo cash cups was by watching pro players place in cash cups. I'll search on YouTube before every single cash cup, first place solo cash cup, and I'll watch top performers. I study their gameplay with a notebook, literally. I try to look for stuff like, when are they looking for storm surge tags? How are they getting storm surge tags? If you don't know what storm surge is, it's when there's too many players alive and you need damage dealt. Otherwise, the storm surge is going to start killing you. It pops up as a warning on the screen saying, either you're this much damage above or you're this much damage below the storm surge. If you're below, you're in trouble. Anyways, I VOD review pro players, I look for when they look for refreshes, high ground, tons of stuff, and it helps give me a clear mind and clarity on what to do in cash cups. The more you watch pro players play, the more you'll understand, and I actually have lots of solo cash cup videos myself where I go over pro gameplay and I go over my tourney, explaining how I played and why I played like that, also my mistakes. All in all, placing in a solo cash cup comes down to experience and hard work. One way you can gain experience faster in solo cash cups is by playing scrim ladders, which you can find on that website rematch.gg, and you can also find it in scrim Discord servers. The way I recommend finding servers is by searching your region, NAE, scrim server, Fortnite. You'll have a bunch pop up on Google and it's super easy to join them. You just gotta verify your Epic Games account and you're good to go. Once you get into those servers, go to the ranked announcements section or just the regular announcements section, and that's where they're most likely to announce scrim ladders. Ladders are like mini tournaments that these Discord servers hold, and it's where people get the best practice. What I recommend you do is VOD review a pro player every time you're about to run scrims and try to imitate some of the stuff they do really well. Each time you do that, you'll get a little bit better at scrims and solo cash cup games, or if it's trios, you'll get better at trios. And that's the way I've seen the most success in tournaments. So I know this is a lot of information, but I told you, this is a full guide on how to get better, how I did it, and all the stuff you need is linked in the description. Just take it slowly, work on one thing at a time, maybe two, figure out what you need to work on the most, and start making a little practice routine or just picking out random things each day to work on. It may take some people a month, it may take some people 6 months, but eventually you'll get so good at this game if you stick to this practice routine. Don't let stuff like ping or your input really hold you back. I used to play on like 60 ping on PS4 during the World Cup season. I know it's rough, but I improved as much as I could while I was on the console on that ping. That way, when I was finally able to afford a PC, I wasn't clueless on how to play the game. I already had a lot of skill built up, and it helped me get to where I am today. I'm just saying, you guys can all improve with this stuff. Go get it. I believe in you. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, use code JIVINTV, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.